at anger. What gives? Don't those two things not work together? Well, I actually saw that, and I had to do a little hunting myself to figure out what might be the truth behind that. But in Ephesians, where it says, "Don't let the sun go down your wrath," you realize that the books of the Bible, those were written to a different time, a different people, different place, right? Go back to the Old Testament, you go back even farther, whole different culture. Well, in the New Testament culture, the phrase "don't let the sun go down your wrath" didn't necessarily mean or refer to bed. In other words, "don't go to bed angry" wasn't the only implication by that phrase in that culture. Now, is it good to not go to bed angry? Yeah. If you can process it before going to bed, yes. But there are times that if I hadn't gone to bed angry, I'd have sinned about 20 times. So there's another expression, that phrase, "don't let the sun go down in your anger." They also use that to talk to people about when you go into the next chapter of life, don't take it with you. It was an expression, don't drag it behind you. In the culture we're talking about, there was no electricity, so "don't let the sun go down in your anger" talked about bedtime. They rose with the sun, and then went to bed with the sun, because you couldn't see anything otherwise. So it did have a reference to bed. If you can deal with your anger before going to bed, but sometimes you've got to process a little bit more. Sometimes you are going to go to bed angry, and sometimes that's the preferable option. I mean, in a real world, okay? Sometimes going to bed with a little anger on your heart is better than taking care of it prematurely. Okay? The thing about spewers we talked about, spewers, okay, they tend to be better themselves. Why? Because they've emptied, they get it out. They don't keep nothing in, don't eat them alive. They're right? Everybody around them gets toasted. Now, if you're a stewer, stewers, they eat it themselves. People around them tend to be better off temporarily.
Until they spew.
Until they spew. Thank you, John. I think those words are in my notes right here somehow. That's exactly how it works. So sometimes you need to take the time. Sometimes it's just saying, look, don't go to the next relationship. Don't go to the next year. Don't go to the next job. Don't go to the next season, the next chapter of your life, dragging all this crap from the last chapter of your life. Because I'll tell you what, the last chapter will show up in the next chapter. It really will. Okay? Oh, one of the verses, Proverbs 22, 24 to 25, don't hang out, this is the message again. Don't hang out with angry people. Don't keep company with hotheads. Bad temper is contagious. Don't get infected. That sound like soul detox to you? All right? Don't, the New Living Translation says, if you learn to be like them, you endanger your soul. Oh! Hanging out with hotheads, people that are quick to anger, and you hang out with them, it bleeds on you. Their anger can become a danger to your soul because it bleeds. Anger leaks. In fact, sin leaks. All right. So James 1:19 we saw earlier. Okay, quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. James 1:20 says, "Human anger does not produce the righteousness of God." And then in verse 22 there, it says, "So get rid of all filth and evil in your lives. Humbly accept the word of God as planted in your hearts, for it has power to save your soul." Power to save your soul. So I put, that's just good verses. That's good stuff. Power to save your soul. That's the kind of thing you want to hang on to if you can find that in Scripture. I'll bring up the next one. So, we're talking about when you have too many thoughts and you offer them too quickly. I mean, I'm a teacher, okay? Everything comes to me in bullets that I can give to somebody else. When you're talking, you know what I hear? I hear something I can turn around and teach somebody else. Okay? I have thoughts, they come in so fast, I forget them as fast as they come in. I have to write them down. That's why I have a smartphone, because I'm always writing stuff on that thing. I use the heck out of that Evernote thing. Man, got Evernote? Yeah, boy, that's good stuff there. I had a PDA back when they were called PDAs. I had them back when there were these black and white things that did squat, and they were like these bricks. Okay, I've been carrying one of them around forever. Too many words offered too freely, and too many emotions just offered too hastily. You know, the thing about anger is it almost is always connected with impulsivity. That's one of the problems with anger, is it's so hard to keep under wraps. And it leads to all kinds of impulsive actions. All right, you ready for the third one, your freebie? You want your freebie that I kind of just dreamed up? This is going to blow your socks off. Ready for this? Okay, the third type of anger, this is really not that good, but it does begin with S, is it's serious or unresponsive anger. So we had sanctified or righteous anger, we had sinful or unrighteous anger. This third type is the serious or the unresponsive anger. I call it bad anger gone rogue. It's taken anger to a whole new level. Chris, you sounds like you might be good at that. This is number 2 gone so rogue, you got a number 3 you got to add on, because this is bad anger completely. I don't know if any of you know what it's like to have something like that have a life of its own. But that's what we're talking about here. Where you have something in your life that feels like it's another person. Like you look back, or maybe you're in the middle of it and you go, oh, what am I doing? And you can't stop. Or you look back at it and you go, what did I do? I'm such a dope. Okay, that's the kind of anger that we're talking about here. Am I moving around too much for your camera, Brenton? Okay.
The volume.
Can't hear.
Go out. Okay. What do you do if it's your MO to blow up? To just blow by all those 3 steps? What if it's your MO to be running emotionally hot, just below boiling point all the time? You know, water boils at 212 degrees, right? What do you do if you're running at 200 or 210 all the time? It don't take much to boil over, does it? Okay, that's no. Everybody say no. No. It don't take much to boil over. What if the best anger management principles you could find don't work? What if your anger just refuses to be managed? What if your anger has taken on such a life of its own that you've kind of just made peace with it? You've just said, you know, I'm never going to beat this. It must be a part of who I am. Sometimes we have this phrase, and I learned years ago, it's called sympathy with sin. I've got a whole story I could tell you on that about the man and his dragon. Everybody read the Tales of the Kingdom? You're familiar with the Tales of the Kingdom trilogy? I won't go there then. All right. But what we tend to do is, I've never done this. This is the only stuff I hear. As a pastor, you like counseling, so I hear stuff, you know. Is that there are certain things in our lives that we have given up hope of overcoming, so we end up actually befriending them, make pets out of them, we coddle them, we make excuses for them, we stop trying to beat them. This rogue anger is expressed back in Ephesians 4. Did I put Ephesians 4 back in there? I did. Go ahead and be angry. Okay, remember all that? But do not give the devil a kind of foothold in your life. All right, now I'm going to disappoint you a little bit at this point, so I'm going to tell you up front. The speaker's never supposed to tell the audience they're going to disappoint them, but I don't do those things right anyway. So we're not going to unpack what to do with this third type of anger, and here's the reason why. I'm just going to say it again. You need help. You know? I had a conversation with someone I care very much about this week, and it's just so hard to get help sometimes. It's very hard to say, ouch, to cry uncle, to admit that this thing is eating your lunch. And the chances are that if you've gotten to that point, you've already tried. You've tried about everything you can find to do to take care of the problem. And it just takes help. Now, Will has been talking about our T groups. He talks about them all the time. You know why? Because you need one. You need people. That thing in your life that's eating your lunch, if you don't tell somebody about it, if you don't share that with somebody, if you don't get some outward perspective on that thing, if you don't get someone to go, I know how you're feeling, and this is the story of what God did in my life. Let me tell you my story and see if it'll help for you. Good luck. In fact, I would even say sucks to be you. You got to get some help. Now, I can hear your mind thinking, yeah, what's the spiritual formation pastor gonna say in the front of a room full of people? Well, I said it. Okay? You sometimes got to get help. I can't unpack all of that. This thing here, don't give the devil that kind of foothold in your life. That's a whole seminar right there. I'm throwing my voice, apparently, and it sounds a lot like Will. Is that Andrew coming through there?
You just turned it off, dude.
Anybody hear that? Anybody besides me hear that? Oh, okay. All right. Which shoulder was that voice coming from? Because the one shoulder said, kick the speaker over. The other shoulder said, just ignore it. Luckily, I listened to the right one. So, we are going to talk about this. At our next session, I'm going to talk about one of the big issues that people find under the hood when their anger light comes on. This was essential in my process of dealing with anger. It wasn't until I forgave my father that my anger went away. So we're going to talk about forgiveness after our break. That's going to be a lot harder session than this was, because this starts right off with some things I got to say to you that are hard to hear if you need to forgive. Okay? Really hard stuff to hear. That's one of the things you're going to find under the hood. This is one of the things people almost always find under the hood when the anger light goes on. There's some disappointment, there's some regret, there's some unmet expectation, there's some wound, some pain, some scar, something there, and that anger is just the way it's coming out, the way it's acting out. I don't know about you, but I tried for years to stop being angry by trying to stop being angry. I'm going to tell you, it don't work. Anger isn't the problem. Anger isn't the problem. What I would like to do in these last 6 or 7 minutes here is I want to just talk a little bit, and I'm totally off script. I've gone off the reservation with this. This is not in the book. This is not part of the notes. This is a total freebie. Hope you like it. Bring up, I think it's the next slide here. Yeah. There's this guy by the name of Watchman Nee.
Yeah.
Now, good stuff. Got to be careful. His book, one of his books, The Spiritual Man, tends to, at the end, he goes a little weird in trying to tell us that if you're ill, it's always because of sin. All illness is because of sin. That's garbage. But there's some stuff that Watchman Nee says that's pretty good. And I had to throw this one at you, and I forgot to bring the book with me. But The Overcoming Life. Okay, so I want to talk to you, what does victory look like? What should I expect? If I want to beat anger, how do I get there? I'm going to just give you 4 things right now so that you can begin to think about victory. Begin to think about overcoming this, okay? This will get you started going down the road. If you can grasp these 4 things I'm going to throw out at you. You won't find them in the format I'm going to give you in this book. Watchman Nee talks about it. He doesn't, he's not half the teacher. I just said that. So he didn't lay them out in these nice bulleted points for the way I'm going to show you to you, and I added a little bit to them, but let me read this to you. The overcoming life is simple. Oh, there we go. The overcoming life is simply Christ himself. The overcoming life is not an improvement or an advancement in yourself. It's not a self-effort to strive to become like Christ. Victory is Christ living within us. That is, it is Christ overcoming for us. Now just think about this with me, just for 1 second. Who is the only person you know that ever beat sin? There's somebody. There's somebody. Only person. I heard it. Someone said it out loud.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah! He's the only one that ever beat sin. And he is prepared to beat it for you. You just gotta let him. Now, I oversimplified that one, didn't I? All right, all right. We got to talk into that a little bit. But, often when it comes to these issues of sin, we have to get out of our own way. Sometimes it actually comes to a point we stop trying. Now, that's a dangerous thing to say, I know. But there are some times when we have to say, you know what? I've tried to beat anger by not being angry long enough. There's got to be a better way. And thankfully, there is. Go ahead. Okay, victory is in a person, not a power. I said it earlier, we're going to talk to you today and we give you these points, and sometimes we look at Christianity as in a formulaic type of way. If you're like me, I love this type of thing. How many with me? You already know where I'm going, right? This is what I love to do. Huh? Yeah. Have you like that stuff?
Yes.
I'm not loosey-goosey. I'm those loosey-goosey types. You don't need checkboxes. I need checkboxes. Christianity isn't like this. It don't work that way. You don't. It's not 1 + 1 + 1 is 3.
Amen.
God's mathematics are bonkers. In fact, in the Bible, here's some bonkers mathematics. In the Bible, 1 + 1 is 1. Because 2 become 1 flesh. This is divine mathematics. Crazy physics going on there. Your answer to your anger is Jesus. It's a person. Now, again, how do you get there? It wasn't until I had someone who was raised in an alcoholic home and hated his father talk to me about how I got to Jesus, because the anger and the unforgiveness was all in the way. It wasn't until I dealt with it the way the Bible teaches you to deal with those things that I could find my way to the cross and the victory that is there. Okay? And this is theology too, but I'm sorry. This is a little bit of theology. We're not doing theology here today. I understand that. All right? But sometimes people think of God as this power that they have to tap into, like your charger, like you plug into a thing, right? Sometimes especially the Holy Spirit, really gets a bad rap on this one. And that this impersonal power that you have to kind of channel or something. It don't work that way. Christianity is a relationship with a living, breathing, well, I don't know if God breathes, that might be an anthropomorphism we don't want to use here, but with a living being who created you. Christianity is a relationship with a person. All right, number 2. Victory is a replacement, not a repair. Oh, we try so hard to repair ourselves, don't we? We try so hard to replace ourselves, or to repair. But there's this thing, and I've gotten a little deep here, so I'm just throwing some of the stuff at you, but there's this thing called death to self, where we get out of our own way, and we give up on ourselves, and we finally yield to Christ's lordship and say, your way, not mine. Sometimes that's called brokenness. It's not a real easy term to define because that sounds so nihilistic and like you're beating up on yourself when you talk about brokenness. But there's a point where, in fact, there's what is Calvary Road? Calvary Road. He's got an expression in there is that brokenness is when it talks about the bent eye. This is me yielding to Christ. Okay, me. Life is about me, and brokenness is when I finally go, it's not about me anymore. It's not about repairing me or fixing me. I'm a wonderfully made creation of God. It's about getting rid of that stuff that's my junk and replacing it with Christ's life. Now, I know, that's a little ethereal. We can't go, okay, Victory is a gift, not a reward. Okay, if you try real hard and work at anger and do all the right things, God will reward you with victory. No, it don't work that way either. Sorry. Last one. This is my favorite, and this is the one I'm going to close on. This is my all-time favorite idea that I got from Watchman Nee. Okay, Christianity is not this thing where we have to constantly be looking at sin, trying to suppress it and keep it in check. That's called bondage. The way to beat anger isn't to suppress it. I've got an illustration with a beach ball. I'm going to share with you later. It'll blow you away. All right? Victory is not suppression. What we want, what God wants for you. In fact, did I throw in John 10:10? Do you have a slide there with John 10:10? All right. John 10:10, it says, "My purpose isn't to steal anything, but my purpose is to give them rich and satisfying life. Life to the full, expressive, overflowing, more and better than we could ever dream of." Does that sound like suppression? No. When you have something like anger in your life, and you are constantly trying to keep that in check, your life becomes all about anger. No, your life comes about all about not being angry. Mine was. It's all about not being angry, because I saw the way my anger was hurting my wife. And I didn't want to do it anymore. I not quit. I couldn't do it. I wanted to so bad. I couldn't do it. And I was living in this suppressed existence because I had to be so careful all the time. Because the slightest little thing, if I wasn't constantly on that anger, it was going to get out and it was going to hurt everyone around me. And I lived in suppression mode. When you live in suppression mode, you can't be who you are. You can't live out of the fullness and the gifts and the joy and the whatever it is you got to give. Because you got it all locked up for fear that's going to get away from you. Bad things are going to happen. Bad things are going to happen to people you love. I'm not here to give you anger management principles today. It's not what you need. I threw my first marker, honey. It's a bad habit with me. I threw them across when I was pastoring the church in Elmira. I threw them across the sanctuary and everything. People are always going, "Incoming!" But they never fell asleep on one of my sermons. Because what they did, I hit them with them. No, just... All right, does that all make some sense to you? Do you see where I want you to go with this? We want to get you to a place where anger isn't this entity in your life that has taken resources and effort and time and concentration, causing you to live in fear and worry and doubt and probably some self-hatred. Yeah. Guys, gals, it's the way to live. Being able to express and be who you are. That's what we really want. All right. Will's going to help me out with this next part. You're going to have to talk a little bit, Will.
Right.
Unless you just let me answer all the questions. We want you to respond a little bit. I want you can, if you want to affirm something that I said, for everybody to just kind of hear that. If you have questions, let's, who's got a question? It's supposed to be a panel Q&A thing here, okay? We need stools, Bill. Don't you use stools?
Yeah, stool.
Yeah. I got one back there, but...
So Kerry, a couple of things that I was thinking about as you were talking, and I thought it was really interesting. I think maybe it's worth talking about a little bit more.
Okay.
Is when you're talking about the idiot light on the dashboard, in terms of anger being a symptom of an underlying problem. I think I heard somebody say one time that all anger is one of two things. It's disappointment, and then I couldn't remember what the other thing is, but it's this idea that there's all of these underlying issues are the real root cause of anger. And what's interesting is, my question is, do you think it's possible to root out all those underlying issues in such a way that you can be free of anger? So what's kind of the, I feel like there's maybe some things that would be recurring in our life, like recurring anger, but then there's other issues that I think that we might need to identify that need to be dealt with so that that underlying boiling point is kind of reduced. So what are your thoughts in terms of like some of those underlying issues? You talked about like your father being an underlying issue. What might be some other underlying issues?
My first thought is that there's a difference between a sin, confess, try again, sin, confess, try again cycle of defeat, and a single sin act. Okay, I'm kind of trying to get at what Rochelle has is really great when you're tempted to be angry. You cave in one day, you pop off at a coworker. It's not this overpowering issue in your life. It's not something you do all the time. It's not part of your MO. People don't know you as an angry person, but dang, they pushed your buttons that day, and something came out, and it was bad. All right? Well, how do you get that under control? Well, you listen. I'm talking about more those things that are where you're out of control. And I think you actually stole a little bit of my thunder for later. Because idiot lights on the dashboard of life is the one expression I use, but the whole medical idea of treating symptoms. When you are trying to deal with anger, instead of the deeper, you're treating symptoms. Right? So for a cold, you treat symptoms, right? For cancer, you can't just treat the symptoms. It takes surgery. It takes getting after the actual growth. Yeah. I actually think just about anything. For me, it was a combination of anger and, he's making me steal my thunder here, but not only was it something that was done to me, but my reaction to it. Okay? My key reaction to it was hatred.
So it's you're not man, because for me my anger is like I'm in a management mode, like so now I stew, like I used to spew all the time, so now I said okay I got to manage that because I can't do this anymore. But all it's turned into is this now stew, then spew less,
Right.
like big spews, but it's only gonna happen once every 4 months now instead of every day. You know what I mean? But it's still eating you up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, my beach ball illustration. Unexpressed anger never goes away. You think it does. Well, I'm here to tell you, what John just told you is unexpressed anger never goes away. And it will show up. So often it's, you mentioned unmet expectations. It might be, it was even an unrealistic expectation you had, but you still had it. And it wasn't met. And you were hurt by it. And your response to it was anger. Now, not everyone responds to those things with anger. Some of them just, you can blame yourself, and that's a whole other talk for a whole other place, for a whole other subject. It might be a real expectation you had every right to expect, but the person didn't follow through on that. I think anything that can lead to anger can be a root. So, you're asking for specifics. It's really hard to...
That's good, because I think one of the things that I'm hearing you say in that is, I think, really helpful, at least to me, is this idea that there's different levels of anger. And understanding what some of those things are that are really, really causing you to be at this boiling point versus some of those things that are creeping up in your life circumstantially. You know, I think there's a good self-awareness in that to become aware of, okay, these are some circumstantial things that I'm not carrying this load, but that rises and falls, but there's some other things that you can just carry this load with you, and it's this boiling point of anger. And I think as a man, I'm often unaware of why I'm angry. Like sometimes I'll be upset. I have no idea why I'm upset. I don't know how to express that. I don't know what's going on. And I heard somebody say one time, you know, most guys, if you ask a teenage boy to identify emotions, they've got two: happy, angry. Right? That's what most guys could identify. And actually, when I was working in residential facilities, we had emotion charts. They had different faces, and most of the time, you're just not aware of, hey, there's more emotions than what this is. So what was happening for me, I can identify as well, that I was having these other emotions, but I didn't know what it was, I didn't know how to deal with it, and I'm expressing it via anger. And just kind of being in tune with. So I thought it was really interesting when you talked about it's okay, your emotions are okay. And to be able to express those emotions in a way that are healthy is probably sometimes some of the pressure valve, the steam release for me to recognize, okay, there's some things that I need to just identify that this is XYZ, I'm disappointed, so maybe that disappointment can be expressed in a little bit different way. And it's funny because it's even hard for me now to identify what are these range of emotions that we're supposed to be feeling. Where I think sometimes, like girls in general, are a little bit more emotionally intelligent to understand what they're feeling right now and why they're feeling it.
So you think what you're saying is sometimes some of us the default to anger because that's our, like you said,
I think
that's how we express those other emotions because that's our default emotion, right?
I think a couple things come to play here is that if you are, first of all, if you have a ballistic type of anger, it's probably not one source. Probably what has happened is there's been additions and your boiling point has been pushed up, maybe over years. And for some of us, we don't, you said we don't realize why we're angry. Some of us don't realize we are angry. We're so used to running at 110 degrees, that's normal. Doesn't everybody feel this way? I mean, anger has become, and this is true of any emotion, we don't realize that we are really angry. Because we can't remember never not feeling what it was like to run with your temperature at 0. So I think we don't know we're angry a lot of times, and I think that it isn't always this big event. Like, so I talk about my dad, this big thing that, and really when I dealt with that, that almost completely handled my biggest anger issue. But for some of us, people don't always remember this big relational breakdown. But if we do some work with them, they'll go back and they'll have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things where they go, that made me really angry. And they actually need to process through, how do I go back to those things? And you know, the whole psychology thing, well, tell me about your mother and your father, right? You know, they joke about that on TV. It's nothing to joke about.
Come on.
It's nothing to joke about. Hi, Ma. My mom's in the room, so you know, she was great because we had our issues. I ran away from home when I was a kid. Man, I did all kinds of stuff, and we were able to sit down and talk about that one day, and we both cried together, just talking through how did that happen? How did we get here? Okay, so you can do it. You can do it, but it takes some help to go back there. You do have to go back. You do have to talk about mom and dad, maybe an uncle, maybe a primary person in your life, like a teacher or a pastor. As a pastor, I can't tell you how many people came to me and were offended by other Christians or other pastors. But it's not this big thing. It's a collection of things. They look back and, like for a person that says, my life never goes right for me, and they have all these events. Is there a question from the room before we're done? Just two pastors up here talking to each other like you're not here. Any questions?
Yeah, you mentioned in the beginning the two types of anger, and you have sanctified or righteous anger and sinful or unrighteous anger. And I think this is a really tough one for guys especially, because guys tend to want to stand up for what's right.
Yep.
But when we turn that into anger, it just messes us up.
Well, boy, you really, I'm going to have to stand for this. Brother, you touched on a pet peeve of mine, and that is how men are treated in the church.
Come on, brother.
Okay? Church has feminized
Come on.
Christianity. Woo! All right?
Can we just clap for that one?
Yeah. And there's a guy, you get me going. There's a guy out there that actually wrote a book. It's called Why Men Hate Going to Church.
It's good.
All right? We like battle songs, man. We get ticked off. We get up on that. We swing our axes around, man. We make wounds on people. And it ain't all bad.
That's what we're built for.
It's what we're built for. We're warriors. That doesn't mean women aren't warriors. That doesn't mean women can't get defensive and defend their children. That is not a chauvinistic comment in any way. Okay? It just means
Gotta be a balance.
that, I'll speak stereotypically here, when the kid comes in with a skinned knee, the dad says rub some dirt in it, and mom goes, oh honey, let me fix that for you.
Yeah.
Unless you're my wife. Who is also in the room. But that stereotypical picture is just used not to be as something that's true, but there are, okay, I'm going to just say this. Men and women are different.
What? Whoa!
Not better, not worse, just different. So
Amen.
thank you. I think sometimes, I'm going to just say another man-woman thing here, so don't. I think sometimes women have a little trouble with maleness. Genuine, authentic, brave, bold, dirty, scratch your butt maleness.
Well, and I don't know if that's women, Kerry, as much as
Some guys have a problem with it too.
it may be more our cultural, the cultural,
Yeah.
we have some cultural confines,
We do.
like
We
in
do,
school, we want our boys to sit at the table
Oh,
Yeah.
and study.
and if they don't, we'll medicate them so they do.
So if the boys want to fiddle and they want to run around and do different things, and so there's some necessary confines in our culture which are different than previous cultures. Previous cultures, you might be able to go out and hunt more.
Yeah.
You might be able to go out and have some of these valid expressions of aggression that testosterone is running through your veins, that now we're told, well, we don't have these. That's why sports are so appreciated by so many guys. This is the one place that you get to be aggressive. It's the one place that you get to be a little bit like, I'm going to knock you down, stand over the top of you and laugh. And that's not necessarily a pretty picture, but I think there are some definite things that we have to have some good outlets for aggression, and it goes back to what you were saying, I think, earlier about being able to be who we are, and finding that in our culture is sometimes elusive for the pursuit of the wild or the pursuit of the dangerous, and doing something. And so when I hear you say that the church has feminized what man is, some of those types of wild expressions, the Lion of Judah, some of these edgy things that can come from some aggressiveness are, I think, what I hear you referencing in terms of that. Because we would certainly value the feminine aspects as well as, but not to take away from the masculine aspects and to value both ends of that. And I absolutely agree that Christianity has, for one reason or another, devalued some of these more masculine types of traits. And it does create a lot of confusion. Am I allowed to be aggressive? Am I allowed to be a little bit scary from time to time in healthy ways? And that's, I think, a good pushback between the two, because you have to realize that impacts the people around us.
I think the culture has screwed up what it means to be a woman too, really.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just guys that
No,
are
everything.
confused in our culture about what does it mean. I think if you go back to the cultural influence, that even what is womanness, what is femininity these days, it's something other than what you see in the Bible and the female saints that you find in the Bible. So we live in a culture that is, well, we have to be countercultural in a lot of this. So yeah, thanks for that balance. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So you've got a 10-minute break. We'll start back up around 11, okay? So we won't start right at 11.
Adrian, do the background. First one.
Make sure. Did you fix that? You want to test
Battery
that?
died.
Oh, okay.
I said the kid, the guy here, she was here, I said, she's asleep.
Check. Two.
I had a lavender on my pillow and I went to sleep.
Two.
Yeah.
2, 1, 2. Check. All right, Kerry, come here.
That they did a study on people who sail.
God's been speaking